Hello, thank you for joining the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs for our Wednesday webinar. We're going to be talking about timeshare, specifically resale and exit scams and some things too, best practices to keep in mind if you're a timeshare owner and you're in the process of considering a resale or getting out of a contract. We've got some best practices that you may want to keep in mind while that process is going on. We'll also have some information on avoiding some different scams that are out there that unfortunately do target people in that time when they're trying to sell their timeshare. So we'll get into that. So our roadmap today, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about SEDCA and how we can help you. And then we'll get into some of our timeshare and reselling type topics. We've got do your research. So we'll give you a little bit of information on some ways to do that. We'll go over some things to know about your rights and know the terms of those contracts. And then we've got a little bit of information of scams that target reselling and exit with timeshares. So we'll kind of go over those and give you a few tips and things to watch out for when it involves these types of scams. So how can SEDCA help you? You can file a complaint with our agency, and I'll show you a little bit about that here as our presentation gets going about how that process works and a little bit about that. But we have a voluntary mediation process that we use with industries that we don't have a regulatory authority with. So sometimes, you know, if you're filing a complaint with us, the best things to do is kind of write out what's happened, what you would like to have happen, the steps maybe that you've taken already with that company. Just kind of writing out a lot of that a lot of times will help kind of guide, you know, a company's response. And just sometimes it's important to get that complaint to the right person in a business. And sometimes we're able to help you with that. And you know, sometimes it's a refund, credit adjustment, or sometimes it's just getting an explanation of why something happened. That may be helpful as well. So you can file those complaints with our agency. We got about 6,000 complaints filed with us last year. So it's a great deal number of complaints for the small staff that we have. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. You can report a scam with our agency. So even if you didn't fall victim to something, you can report it to our agency. We like to have that information because we want to know what's going on across the state, and we use that information to protect other consumers, educate other people about what's going on, and hopefully information you provide may be able to help prevent another scam from happening and somebody falling victim to it. And we also have an identity theft unit that can kind of go through any identity theft situations that you might have, and they'll provide guidance on different steps you might need to take. So that might be walking through some of those accounts that are at risk and different steps you may need to better protect your information, protect those accounts. So they can kind of walk you through that, and they have a checklist that they go through, and we'll be able to help kind of guide you through that process. And I tell people it can be extremely frustrating and it can be extremely time consuming, but they can kind of help you out and let you know those steps that you might need to take. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about the background of business section as well on our website here once we get kind of rolling with the presentation. But you can use this tool on our website to find out information about different businesses and industries in our state. So you can go through and see if, you know, particular business is somebody that we license and regulate, or we also have information about other state agencies that license and enforce rules in particular industries. So we can find all that information on our website. And you can also kind of go through the complaints that have been filed with us and see what problems or issues other consumers have had with the company. And I'll show you that a little bit more once we kind of get into our presentation. And we also offer free presentations in person and virtually, kind of like the one you're watching right now. But we do those across the state. And again, they are free for your community group or, you know, whatever type of situation is with your group. But we'll try to find a topic that meets your needs. We do a lot of scam, identity theft topics. We also do some financial literacy stuff, you know, like involving credit reports and scores, those types of things. So we have all that list on our website. And we also work to get answers to any questions that you may have. We have a live person who will answer our phone here at SEDCA, and hopefully if it's not something that we deal with directly, they can kind of point you in the right direction, but you will get a real live person who will answer the phone and not send you through all those options to dial to for, you know, one thing or another. So we pride ourselves in being able to help kind of get you pointed to the right place to get those answers to any questions that you might have. And of course, consumer.sc.gov is our website. And I always tell people that, well, how do I button is the best place to start. So I'll have a lot of the resources that I just mentioned, and I'll kind of get into very much specifics about some of these as we get going in the presentation, but that's the best place to start, find a lot of our resources. In the About Us section there in the top left, we'll kind of give you a little outline as well about how our agency operates and kind of who we are and what we do. And as we get going, I kind of want to start out with showing you our spotlight information on looking to get out of your timeshare. And that's got a lot of the information that we're going to be covering today. So I really encourage you to download that PDF if you haven't done so already. It should be available in the chat box of the webinar, and we'll also put it in there again in a little bit, because I know sometimes it takes a little minute for Zoom to show it to you, or if you've logged in since we put it in there, sometimes you're not able to see it. So we'll pop that in there again here in a little bit at the end of the presentation. But we also have it available at consumer.sc.gov in the scam education section of our website. And again, that's going to go over a lot of the details that we'll be discussing today. And it's kind of that quick sheet to kind of show you a lot of that information about a lot of the different elements of the presentation we're going to be talking about. And I want to start out with kind of doing your research. So of course, before you hire a timeshare, resale, or exit company, you want to do that research on the front end. You want to check out the business, just kind of know about who you're dealing with. And one of the first things you want to do, get some references from your friends, neighbors, or coworkers, or people that you might know who've been in the same type of situation and looking for that. So you want to check with people that you trust and get those recommendations on somebody before you hire them or get into a contract with them to perform, not just this, but any kind of work like that. So make sure you're getting those references from friends, neighbors, coworkers, those people that you trust. And you can also do a search for that business online. You want to look up any of those reviews, things that you might see online, know what people are saying about that business. One of the things we always tell people is do that online search on, whatever search engine you're using, and just add the word complaint or maybe add the word scam after the name of that business, and just kind of see what's out there and what people are saying. A lot of times they'll give you a good idea about what's going on with that company, if there's somebody you can trust, or if something else is a little off and you need to do a little bit closer dig into what's going on. But any of those searches you can do on any of those types of websites, that have reviews, things like that, those will all be good things that you can do just to kind of help give you a little bit more information about the company that you're dealing with. And you also want to know if the company's licensed. You want to see if they're licensed to sell real estate. And in our state, they are kind of licensed through labor licensing and regulation. That is a different agency than SCDCA. And you want to make sure that they're got that real estate license, right? And there is a South Carolina Real Estate Commission, and they are part of labor licensing and regulation. Probably hear them as LLR. They do have that licensee lookup on their website as well. So I've got the link for those in those slides. And if you click the link on that SC Real Estate Commission, it's going to take you to their website too. And they have all their phone numbers, contact information too. So if you're not really sure if that person is a licensed real estate agent in our state, you want to go take a look at that information, and they'll be able to kind of guide you through that. And you want to make sure you're dealing with somebody reputable in our state and somebody who's passed all those, regulatory steps to be able to buy and sell real estate in South Carolina. And again, we kind of got a lot of that information on our background of business page on SCDCA's website. And I'll give you a little bit kind of closer look at that. And I'm going to show you a little bit with our complaints process with that too as we get going. So again, best place to always look on our website is that how do I button, and then you'll see 3 down in there is the background of business section. So once you click that, it's going to take you to this page, and this is going to be what it looks like. You'll see that list of state agencies down below. Those are just various state agencies that we have to refer to from time to time, just because state law kind of sets up what each state agency deals with and the specific industries that they might license or they might regulate, those types of things. And if you scroll down a little bit further past that, you're going to see the complaint section or the search complaint section for our website, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about that, but that's going to allow you to click that little button that you see there, and it's going to take you to the complaint portal that we have. And you'll find that's going to be kind of useful because it contains complaints filed with SCDCA since January 1st of 2014. So it's going to give you a good bit of background on those companies that maybe you come across, and you can put that information in there. It's going to provide you a little bit of information about complaints that have filed with our agency, and this is kind of what that complaint portal looks like once you click in there. And I've also got kind of that link on there too. So I like to put a lot of links on my slides. So if you downloaded the slides, you should be able to click a lot of this different stuff, and it'll take you exactly to where you need to go. But kind of one of the things that I like to point out is that business name section there. You'll notice those little buttons on there. You can do name begins with, or you can do name contains. So if you're not really kind of sure of the full name of the company, or, maybe there's something before the start of, that keyword that you remember about the name of the company, you can kind of change up your search based on whatever information you have about them. And hopefully that will help you be able to pull up some information. But if nobody's filed a complaint regarding that company, it's not going to show up. But if you're involving a company that has complaints that have been filed with SCDCA, it's going to show you something kind of like this. For my example, I left off the name of a company that was listed on here because I didn't want to single anybody out, but I kind of want to give you a little bit of idea of kind of what this looks like. So you'll see those complaint dates there. You're going to get that short summary on the screen. It's going to show you also kind of the status type, which in this case, you'll see satisfied, consumer satisfied. Sometimes you might even see, unsatisfied, and that might be something going on where the business may or may not have responded, or, there was something going on, but it'll give you a little bit of information about how those complaints were closed and, kind of what's going on with that business. And if you were to click the dates that you see there on the left side of the screen, it's going to pull up those individual complaints, and you'll be able to kind of get a little bit more information in there. I also like to point out to people, it doesn't show any of that information about the consumer. So it's not going to show you, say, if I filed a complaint, it's not going to show you that Scott Cook filed a complaint against that business. It's just going to give you that kind of complaint summary and that information about the status and how that complaint was closed, if it was business response, if it was a consumer satisfied, or whatever that case may be. So don't worry about other people looking in there and being able to see that you specifically filed that complaint on that database, but it'll be a little bit of a summary about what's going on, and hopefully give you a little bit of understanding about maybe what other consumers we're dealing with. And kind of our next step when we get to these exit and resale timeshare deals is you want to make sure that you know your rights. And so it's kind of important to point out that timeshare resale service providers are required to give consumers a written contract, and that's going to include a complete description of the services offered, the link of the contract, and they're supposed to have SCDCA's phone number and our website address on those contracts. So make sure those things are on there. And of course, I always tell people you want to understand all those details that are in that contract as well. So if you have any questions, you want to start asking those. And we tell people too, sometimes you may need to get an attorney involved. So it may be worth that money up front to get an attorney to kind of look over a lot of that stuff. So it kind of prevents that headache or financial problems later on, just things that you may not have understood that were in there and things that you didn't expect to have come up. So it may be worth having that attorney look over those contracts on the front end so you don't have to deal with those problems much later on. And consumers do have a right to cancel when it comes to timeshare resale contracts. State law sets that for 5 business days. And I also like to kind of point out sometimes with these types of things that not all contracts have that right to cancel. So you may hear that come up with different kind of sales things from time to time where people think they have that right to cancel. That's not the case for everything, but state law does kind of set that for these timeshare resale contracts. And again, you've got 5 business days to do that. So that's 5 business days from when you've signed that. So just kind of keep that in mind as those situations come up, that if you're looking to possibly get out of that contract or make some kind of arrangement at that time, you only have 5 business days to do that. So just kind of keep that in mind when it comes to these types of contracts. There are also rules regarding fee restrictions and escrow. So timeshare resale service providers cannot charge for appraisals, but they may require marketing or advertising cost up front. But those contracts have to clearly provide all of that information and outline all of that. And again, any additional money given to the timeshare resale service provider by the consumer must be held in escrow until the resale services are complete. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Then you want to make sure that you know those terms of that contract. So one of the big things, you want all of that stuff in writing. So make sure any promises are being made, everything you have, get it in writing. And when you're talking to the representative of the company, you want to make sure all that information is there in that contract before you agree to anything, before you sign anything. Again, make sure you understand all that stuff as well. And you may even want to ask the company's advertisement strategy, ask about that, and just see how you can monitor the progress of any of those marketing plans that they're using that deal with your specific property. And of course, you want to make sure that you understand those payment processes that are kind of involved with any of these contracts. One of the things that you might want to ask about any of those upfront fees. Again, you might also want to kind of ask about any refund policies that are involved. So again, just kind of make sure you understand all of those different types of things before you sign that contract, and make sure you understand that payment process and you know about any upfront fees and those refund policies and those types of things that may be available. And then kind of before you get into signing anything, just want to make sure you read all the timeshare documents that you already have with that timeshare, especially, if you're reselling or trying to get out of those contracts. You want to make sure you read those timeshare documents fully and check maybe with the result of that business, make sure that you know everything that's going on, make sure that the sale and the transfer of ownership, if you're trying to make that happen, make sure all those things are going to be able to go off without a hitch. So you're also kind of checking in with that original resort that you've got that timeshare with, and just make sure that everything going on with your exit strategy is kind of in line with how they work and what you've already signed with them, and make sure all those documents are kind of in line and you fully understand that and you're kind of meeting their policies as well. And you're just kind of doing that again on that front end before all those contracts get moving. And if you don't understand their process for that, you want to ask all those questions. You can find a trusted friend, family member. Again, an attorney might be the best way to go, so they can look over all those documents and kind of give you that legal advice that are very specific to your situation and your contracts and all that. So again, doing that before you go through with all these contracts may be a good idea, especially with real estate transactions. A lot of these things can be complicated from time to time. So just kind of make sure you're doing all those processes the way that they want it done. And kind of one of the last steps that you also want to do is just kind of go through again, before you pay that company to help you with that contract or sell your timeshare, you want to ask that developer, that resort management company, about all the options. So go through with them. And again, you're kind of checking with that resort, that timeshare management company, making sure everything's going through smoothly. And again, you're just kind of doing that process before you finalize everything with that company that you're selling your timeshare to. So again, just kind of go through with that resort management company, make sure things are in line. And we have some links on that PDF, that timeshare one sheet that I mentioned earlier, and that will kind of give you some good guidance as well. It's got some groups that kind of will help you find those proper management companies. If you know who you're dealing with, that will kind of help you get to the proper places that can kind of help check you through some of that as well. And if you get to a section where you need to file a complaint, you can do that with SEDCA. If you have a timeshare resale or exit service provider that you're looking to file a complaint with, again, you can go to consumer.sc.gov and file. You can also do through a printed mail form that you would send in to us. We can also send you some of those forms if you need, but all that information is on our website. You can even download that mail version of the form to send to us from our website. But consumer.sc.gov is going to get you to our online complaint portal, and that is the way that we kind of recommend folks submit complaints. And it's probably particularly helpful in these type of situations because it's going to allow you to submit any of those contracts, supporting documents, all the different types of things that could go along with those resales. And with your complaint, it's just a lot more documents probably involved in some type of situation like this. So that online portal is going to give you that place to do it all kind of at once, and also kind of gives you access to messaging the person dealing specifically with your complaint. So that's why we recommend doing that. And of course, just doing it online is going to be a lot quicker as well. And again, you'll see this again throughout the presentation, or how do I button at consumer.sc.gov, and you'll see the complaint section at the very top of that list. So if you click on that, it's going to take you to our complaint page, which this is kind of what that looks like. And it's going to outline a little bit more about our complaint process and the things involved with that. So that will give you a lot of information. Will again take you directly to that complaint portal, and then you can create an account and put in all that information about your specific complaint. And also just kind of like to point out that a lot of timeshare resale exit scams, they usually kind of begin with these unsolicited phone calls that you might start getting. And kind of one of the reasons for that is for property records. They're open to the public, right? And a lot of scam artists are kind of going to go through all those property records and try to find people that kind of fit the type of scam that they're wanting to go through. So just kind of keep that in mind if you start to receive unsolicited offers to help you get out of your contract or to sell your timeshare. Just kind of be skeptical, especially if they're coming to you out of the blue like that. So anytime you're getting calls out of the blue, just kind of raise those red flags and start questioning things a little bit and ask a lot of questions. And we just know that scammers a lot of times will claim to represent somebody with a company, and they'll say they've already got buyers in line, people who are interested in your property. They might even say, all you have to do is pay this fee and we'll get everything going, and then we'll close this deal and you don't have to lift a finger. So just kind of know that a lot of these types of scams start off that way, and they're pretending to be companies that are involved in these types of process. So anytime you're getting these calls out of the blue like that, just kind of be cautious, and you don't want to give money to somebody before you had time to look over a contract, checked out all the details, kind of like we were mentioning a little bit earlier in the presentation. So just kind of keep those things in mind. And I always like to give people a couple of quick little things to avoid these types of scams. And again, that big thing is those unexpected phone calls, right? So you don't want to answer calls, respond to text messages from numbers you don't know. We always encourage people, if you're getting a lot of messages like this coming in through your phone, block them and take those steps on your phone, report junk, all those different types of things that are available on our cell phones. And you never want to give personal or financial information to a request you didn't expect. Just legitimate businesses don't normally just call you out of the blue and start asking all kinds of personal financial information. So just kind of keep that in mind. You always want to guard all those details and not give away any of that information unless you 100% know that the person on the phone is who they're claiming to be. And you don't want to fall for any of the high pressure tactics. We know scammers like to demand that you pay or you make these decisions right away, and they'll kind of give a lot of different things to kind of pressure you into making those decisions quickly or to giving away information pretty quickly. So just don't fall for all those high pressure things. You can always take a step back, hang up the phone even. So if it's something legitimate, you'll, have a way to get a hold of that person later or something like that. But just don't fall for those high pressure things that are coming into us all the time. And also just kind of know these forms of payments that scammers like to use. Gift cards, of course, they're still asking for gift cards from people. Maybe it's a prepaid debit card that they want you to go in and load up. We even hear about them sending barcodes to people, where it'll be take this barcode, have it scanned at this store, and then put money onto this account for us. All those types of things were just a little unusual, especially if they're asking you to go and buy cryptocurrency to send over to them. Just all these things are just kind of unusual. Scammers like these payments because it's just as good as cash, and they know they can make off with all that money before you have a chance to kind of challenge it and figure out what's going on. And a lot of times before if you've sent over gift cards or cryptocurrency, they're able to kind of take all that money, put it in their accounts, move it all around the world before anybody can really track down whatever's happened and whatever's gone wrong. So just kind of keep that in mind. If these unusual payment types are being asked for you, just kind of take a step back. And that's kind of one of those things to watch out for. And of course, we always recommend to people stop, talk to somebody else, about the situation. Sometimes just saying something out loud will help you realize that the situation isn't really quite what it was told to you on the front. So you can kind of spot those scams just by kind of outlining what's happened to somebody else. You always want to talk to other people about what's going on. So if that's a friend, family member, neighbor, whatever the case may be, just find somebody that you trust, talk to them about the situation before you make any decisions. And when it comes to these types of scams, unfortunately, people who fall victim to real estate, timeshare type scams, they're kind of more susceptible to a second scam, right? So the scammer may call and target that person a second time, unfortunately. And sometimes they'll say they can help you get money back that you lost in that first scam. So got a couple of quick things to just kind of ask yourself about this, and one of the big ones is, why would this caller know that I've lost money? Sometimes they'll pretend to be a law enforcement agency or something like that. So you just kind of think about that and be like, well, did I file a police report? Did I, file something with this agency? How did they know I lost money? And sometimes they might even ask for money to help you recover your lost money, right? So that's kind of one of those warning signs as well. Government agencies, especially law enforcement, aren't going to ask you to pay for their service. You've already paid for that with tax money, right? So just kind of think about that and know if they're asking you to pay money to recover money, there's a pretty big chance that that's a scam there. And again, sometimes they'll pretend to be a government agency that's involved with these cases. Like I said, maybe law enforcement or something like that, but they'll say they're with the government agency who can go through and help you through this process. So just kind of be cautious if you're getting those calls out of the blue, especially if you haven't filed something with somebody and made those reports or those types of things. So just kind of keep all of that in mind. And we always tell people, if you've been on our presentations before, you've heard this, but these are kind of our red flags of all the scams that are out there. We know these things kind of change up with their tactics and the things that they say to people, but there are kind of these common signs of a scam that we like to warn folks with. And first one is just, there's a problem or a prize, and they do that to get us kind of worked up. So if you think there's a problem, you're probably getting worked up. Oh man, I'm going to lose all my money, or whatever the case may be that they're saying to you. So that's kind of that first thing that they do. And they do that to get us worked up. They get our emotions going, and they know when that happens, we may be more likely to make a bad decision. I know when I get upset about something, may not be quite thinking things through clearly. So that's kind of why these scammers do that type of stuff. They want to get our emotions going, and then they get our kind of thoughts going with that. And then we're kind of not making the best decisions that we might make. And then they're going to pretend to be somebody that somebody that you recognize. And they do that because they want you to interact with them, right? So they want you to answer the phone. They want you to respond to that text message or that email. And again, they want you to think that there's somebody that's worth your trust too. So that's why they do that as well. A lot of times they'll pretend to be companies or businesses or government agencies, law enforcement, that you might know or deal with regularly in your community. So that's kind of why they do that. They want you to have that trust level with them and then kind of get that interaction going with them. So just kind of be cautious about that. Then they're going to pressure you to act immediately. So it's that you act now or else something bad's going to happen, right? And they also do that to kind of get you on a time crunch. So they know if you're making that decision quickly and you don't have a whole lot of time to think about it, you're more likely to fall victim to that scam. You're more likely not to talk to somebody else about what's going on. So just kind of anytime that you have to act right now or else, that's one of those red flags to kind of watch out for and be cautious about. And again, if there's demands to pay in that specific, unusual way, that's kind of one of those red flags as well. So again, cryptocurrency, especially if they're trying to tell you you have to go to a cryptocurrency ATM and put money in order to do whatever it is. That's kind of one of those big red flags. There's not really any government agencies or law enforcement or courts or anybody that takes payment in those types of ways. So, if they're telling you to go to a cryptocurrency ATM, buy a gift card, use a prepaid debit card that you just load and send them those codes. Those are all kind of unusual things that most government agencies, most law enforcement, or I should say all, none of us take payment in those types of ways. So just kind of know that that is one of those things that scammer do. And again, they're trying to make you hand over that money. They're able to take all those funds and kind of get away before anybody has time to track down where all that's gone. And a lot of times, by the time law enforcement can track it down, it's already across the world and they're unable to access those accounts or they've been drained already. So just kind of know that anytime somebody's asking for those unusual specific types of payment, it's one of those things to kind of watch out for. I always like to give you a little bit more information about different things you could do to protect yourself and your personal information. And one of the best things you can do is kind of monitor your credit reports. Regularly, we recommend annualcreditreport.com because it is authorized by federal law. Federal law kind of sets up the rules that they operate by. So that's kind of why we recommend them. Annualcreditreport.com is going to give you access to Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. It used to be just once a year that you got access to those reports. Now you can get them every week. You just kind of want to go through those every so often, at least once a year, but maybe a little bit more frequently than that. Just kind of take a look, make sure everything on it's accurate, make sure everything actually belongs to you. So if you're seeing, credit cards that you didn't open or some kind of loan that, you don't remember creating that loan or asking for that application for that loan, you might kind of be those signs that something's going on. Somebody has access to your information and is trying to use it. So just kind of go through those. And again, want to make sure all that information is actually yours. So go through, see if there's any phone numbers, addresses, anything like that that you don't recognize. And some of those things may be signs that identity theft is going on if you're seeing things that you don't recognize. And you want to challenge that stuff immediately if you're seeing things that don't belong to you on those credit reports. You may consider a fraud alert if you're seeing those unusual things on there. And that's basically just going to alert businesses that they need to take additional steps to verify your identity, that something's gone on, and they need to take a closer look at that application before they go through with it. And the fraud alert is going to last a year. Basically, you just call one of the credit bureaus, so Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. You can do it on their websites as well. You just notify one of them that you want that fraud alert, and they'll place that on there, and you can't extend it later on if those issues are still out there and you're still concerned about that. One of the best tools I always recommend to people is that security freeze on your credit reports. You do need to go to Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, either their websites where you can give them a call, put that security freeze in place, and it's going to stop people from accessing that line of credit. So it will prevent other people from creating new lines of credit or new loans, things like that in your name. I like to tell people I've had a situation where somebody tried to open up a new credit card in my name. I had that security freeze in place. So, that was a great tool for me. I got a notice that somebody tried to open up that account. Fortunately, it didn't go through because I had that security freeze in place. They do give you a little bit of information, they say if it was you applying for this, you'll need to, lift that freeze and then you can go through that process again, or have that, application run again. So it's just something that great tool to take advantage of, and it will stop other people from using your information. Now, if you need to go in and open up a new credit card or get a new car loan or something like that, you will need to lift that freeze or thaw it, kind of use that same language for both of those processes, or it's the same process, but different words for it. But you can lift that. It's free to do. Usually they'll have it lifted within an hour. So if you need to have an application run, you go to their websites, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, lift that freeze, and they'll, about an hour, you'll be able to kind of put in those applications. And once that's done, you can put that freeze back in place, and their websites will even let you set that time frame. So if you only need a day or two to, get that car loan or home loan, whatever the case may be, you can kind of set those freezes to automatically go back in place once those things are kind of going through and you've already gone through that process. So they're a great tool, and it will really, it's a big step that you can take to prevent other people from using your information. And if you think you're a victim of a scam or identity theft, again, you can file those reports with our agency, consumer.sc.gov, and let us know. We have an identity theft unit who can kind of walk you through that process. They'll look at what's happened, those steps that you might need to take to prevent further damage from happening. They have a little checklist that they go through, and depending on what that type of situation is, they have some very specific stuff that they'll send to you. It kind of outlines all those different types of things that will go along with your situation. They can kind of guide you through that process. And of course, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. We have a lot of publications on our website. Ditch the Pitches, our scam prevention book that would really encourage folks to download. You can get that at consumer.sc.gov. You can download it, or you can request physical copies of these books. We have our credit report guide, our identity theft prevention guide, and a lot of others on our website. And we are happy to mail those out to you if you or your community group need them. And we'll kind of box those up if you need up to 50 for a church or library or Boy Scout group, whatever the case may be. We'll send those over to you free of charge. And all that information is on our website. We also encourage you to follow us on social media, on Facebook, X, Instagram, and our YouTube is a great source of information as well, where we put a lot of our webinars, and you can go in and kind of look at some of those previous presentations that we've done and different other short little topics that are on there as well. Hopefully be able to provide a little bit of information to you, and that's all on our YouTube channel. We've got a list here of our upcoming webinars. So next week on our Wednesday webinar, 10:30 a.m., we're going to talk about 5 scams you need to know about. And those are just kind of some of the latest things that have come across our desk and information that we've gathered on different scams that are out there, different little tricks that scammers are trying right now. On September 17th, we're going to talk about some debt collection frequently asked questions. And we'll also talk about some of the scams we see with debt collection type issues as well. And then the following week, we'll give you some advice on shopping for products and services and just different tips to keep in mind, and some of the information, maybe if you're looking at different payment methods and things like that that you're looking at. And of course, we'll also have different things you can do to protect your information while you're looking for those various products and services. And it may seem a little early, but we're already looking ahead to October, and we've got our free shred events that we're organizing for the month of October. So on the 9th, we'll be in North Charleston at the Coliseum there, and that's in parking lot A. So if you've been outdoor events there, that's that same location, kind of in that corner there of the North Charleston Coliseum. But again, that's parking lot A. Shandon Baptist Church will be there on October 20th, and then October 22nd will be at the Coastal Discovery Museum in Hilton Head. That's a different location than we've been at in the past there from where we've been in Hilton Head. So that's the Coastal Discovery Museum on October 22nd. And then on October 28th, we'll be at the Joe Brown Senior Center, working with the Anderson County Senior Citizens Program there in Anderson. And that location will be on South Fant Street, and we're kind of back behind the building. I know we did it last year for the first time at that location, but it is kind of behind the building, so it may be a little bit hard to see from the road, but we'll kind of help guide folks out to that. We'll be out there, waving people around to where we are on that location. So we encourage you to come out to that. We have all that information on that website address up there at the top of the screen, consumer.sc.gov/shred-events. All of those events I didn't mention, they are 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So just kind of keep that in mind for all of those events, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. I encourage you to shoot us an email if you got any questions, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We appreciate you for being with us this week, and I hope this was helpful, and we hope to see you again at a future webinar.